Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome. And thank you for joining this session of our Mitsui series. Today's session is called A Trusted Tennessee Partner: Why Japanese Companies Are Successful in Jackson, featuring our speaker, Mandy White, who we'll hear from shortly. My name is Sammy Arnold, Executive Director with the Japan America Society of Tennessee. And this session of the Mitsui Lecture Series will be recorded and available on JAS's YouTube channel, as always. And again, as always, if you have a question for our speaker, please use the Q&A tab there at the bottom of the screen. You can type in your question as Mandy's going through her presentation, and we'll get to it as soon as she finishes her presentation. The Mitsui Lecture Series is made possible thanks to the generous support of the Mitsui USA Foundation. And the purpose of the Mitsui series is for high-profile speakers to present on topics of interest to the Japanese and non-Japanese speaking business communities in Tennessee. The series highlights Japan's footprint around the world and its contributions to Tennessee's prosperity over the last 40 plus years. And Mitsui has been in Nashville, in Tennessee, since the mid-1980s. They truly are, I never am able to do them justice, but they're truly one of the best and strongest supporters of the Japan-Tennessee relationship, and they have been for many, many years. And it's an amazing company that we're blessed to have in this state. And it is my pleasure now to welcome Jeff Hughes, General Manager and Regional Officer of the Mitsui Trade Service Center here in Nashville. Jeff also is a JAS board member and a great supporter of JAS as well. And we welcome Jeff. Jeff, take it away.
Hey, thanks, Sammy. Good afternoon, everyone. Always happy to be back for another Mitsui Lecture Series event. And I was telling Sammy before coming in, I'm actually happy to be able to join you from my actual office today in Nashville. Usually I'm on the road. I tell them I'm in an airport or in a car or in a hotel, something like that. So happy to be doing it from Tennessee for a change. On behalf of Mitsui USA, we're proud to continue sponsoring and supporting the program and the incredible work, of course, of the Japan America Society of Tennessee. This series is very important to us as an organization. It highlights the spirit of partnership that connects Japan and Tennessee. That's a partnership built on trust, respect, and the shared belief that everyone benefits when business and community grow together. And that idea really aligns with Mitsui's own vision to build long-term value through collaboration, curiosity, and connection. It's something we've believed in for hundreds of years, and it continues to be how to guide how we invest, how we hire, and how we show up in the communities that we're part of. So today's discussion is a great reflection of that. I've had the privilege of getting to know Mandy White over the last couple of years since I've been a part of JAST, and she's certainly been integral to turning collaboration into real progress, both for communities and companies. Story of Jackson, which I believe is now home to more Japanese companies per capita than anywhere else in the state. And it's a great example of what happens when people commit to understanding one another and building something that's really lasting. So with all Mitsui Lecture Series events, we're happy to support today's conversation and to elevate the kind of leadership and partnership that continue to shape Tennessee's future. So thanks again to the Japan America Society for setting this up and doing this platform. We're absolutely happy to be a part of it, and we'll be doing this hopefully for a long time. So Sammy, I will turn it back over to you, and then we can get on to Mandy. Thanks a lot.
Fantastic. Jeff, thanks to you, thanks to Mitsui and the foundation, of course, for everything you guys do for us. And so now it is my great pleasure to introduce our speaker, Mandy White, Chief Economic Development Officer of the Greater Jackson Chamber. And this whole thing is special to me, by the way, because my family is from Jackson, Tennessee. So this hits home for me. But Mandy is also the Japan America Society of Tennessee's Vice Chair and a longtime JAS member. Originally from Ashland City, Mandy holds a BS degree from Union University, which is where both of my parents graduated from, Mandy, and is a graduate of the University of Oklahoma Economic Development Institute. Mandy serves many local organizations, including the Jackson Regional Municipal Planning Commission and Union University's McAfee School of Business Executive Advisory Board. She's also a member of the Tennessee Economic Development Council, where she was past president. And among her many awards and accomplishments, Mandy was recognized as one of the top 50 economic developers in North America by Consultant Connect. And she's a frequent speaker for economic development conferences and training programs. And as a member of Team Madison County, Mandy markets Jackson to industrial companies. She also focuses on existing industries, identifying and assisting with growth opportunities. And since her involvement with Team Madison County, nearly 16,000 new industrial jobs have been created, representing investments of over $4.46 billion dollars. And they have a very special relationship with Japan and Japanese companies that Mandy is going to talk about. They, as Jeff alluded to, they punch way above their weight in terms of the number of Japanese employers they have for a city the size of Jackson. And we wanted to do this with Mandy to better understand how this relationship was able to come about and develop and flourish. And so Mandy knows how to support Japanese companies from site selection to expansion, and she understands what Japanese companies need and how to help them grow. So without further ado, I'd like to turn it over to our featured speaker today, Mandy White. Mandy, take it away.
Sammy, thank you so much. And Jeff, thank you so much for Mitsui's support of JAST and of the Japanese companies in our state. I am honored to be here today to share a little bit with you about what has made Jackson successful and what I've learned in my 26 years of working with Japanese companies. And so with that, if y'all are seeing the slides, I'll let you tell me if you're not. I'm going to assume we are. I'll move on to slide 2 here. So what I plan to discuss today, really an introduction to our team and some of our recent successes, talk about the Japanese presence that is in Jackson, what has made us successful, what are those 8 or 10 things that we think we do really well or that we're told we do really well that have allowed us to be so competitive, why are companies interested in us. And then a little bit, which might be redundant for a lot of you on this call today, but working with Japanese companies, what I've learned, what are some tips and tricks, some very basic etiquette. I have a passion for teaching people about Japanese business etiquette, so I do a whole session on that. I'm not going to do that today, but I thought I'd pull out some of the highlights that might be good as a refresher for some people. And then, of course, we'll reserve time at the end for questions. And with that, we'll move along. So we are located, and I'll show you some maps in a moment, but in Jackson, Tennessee, Madison County, and we call our team Madison County. Now, it's really intentional that there is no logo for that team. There is no true brand for that team because it evolves and changes. The team might include the school system at one point. It might include the hospital. It might include a local construction firm. But what never changes is that our mayors give the Greater Jackson Chamber the ability to be the quarterback of the team. So we are the primary point of contact for all economic development. And for us, and for today, I'll talk about economic development as it relates to industrial recruitment, because economic development can be a lot of different things. Today, we'll talk about industries, though. Our team has been pretty successful. We have a great group of people who don't care who gets credit. And that has allowed us to create over 4,100 jobs in the last 5 years, representing $2 billion investment. For a town our size, our county has around 100,000 people. Having $2 billion, and that's a conservative number, having that invested here in the last 5 years is something we are immensely proud of. So what Japanese companies do we have here? Well, I'll start at a high level and say, as everyone on this call knows, Japan is very important to the state of Tennessee. The FDI from Japan represents more than half of all foreign direct investment that our state sees from any country. So for one single country to represent more than half, it's no secret and it's no wonder why we place such an importance on Japanese companies and supporting those that we have and ones that we're going to perhaps grow. So in the state, there are over 200 companies representing $20 billion of investment. But here in Jackson, as you said, we have more Japanese companies per capita than any other in the state. We have over 2,600 people that work for our local Japanese manufacturers. They've invested nearly $900 million in our community, and there are 7 different companies that are here, and here they are. So we have TBDN Tennessee Company, UGN Inc., Pacific Manufacturing Tennessee, Toyota Motor Manufacturing Tennessee, which is an OEM located here in Jackson, Toyota Boshiku Tennessee, Most Inc., and Green Metals Inc. So you can see their parent companies listed there, and these are the companies that we go visit when we take our team trips to Japan that I'll talk about in a few moments. I am so excited. I could not have planned this better, but just this morning we had a very, very exciting announcement. Toyota is boosting its hybrid production, investing $912 million throughout its facilities in the country. And in Jackson, they are investing $71.4 million and adding 33 jobs here, which will increase production of the hybrid transaxle cases and housing and engine blocks for hybrid vehicles. That brings their total investment here in Jackson to nearly $500 million. So Toyota is very important to Tennessee. Toyota is very important to Jackson. I think sometimes because we are not an automotive assembly plant, we forget that we have another OEM over here in West Tennessee, and Toyota is a company we are extremely proud to have here and are so excited to have this announcement this morning. So why have we been successful? What makes Jackson attractive to Japanese companies, to other manufacturing companies? Well, one, I think, is that team approach. That's the intangible that you can't really taste or feel or see it, but that team approach, that ability to create authentic connections and develop relationships and rapport and to be transparent and just the authenticity of our team really makes a difference, particularly when we're dealing with Japanese companies. It makes me so proud when we do land a company or an expansion and they're listing the reasons why. And it's very often that what comes to the top is the team and the relationship that they have formed. So I think our team approach probably is the top reason. We have pro-business leaders here. Not only is the state of Tennessee a right-to-work state, but we have our local elected officials from the mayors, the commissioners, the city council members who are supportive of industrial growth. They understand that manufacturing affects the economy more than any other sector. For every job created in manufacturing, you'll hear anywhere from 2 to 5 jobs created elsewhere. For every dollar invested in manufacturing, it's the same. So it's not that small business is not important. Small business is the backbone of any community. It's because small business is so important that we work so hard to recruit manufacturers, because of our manufacturers, we're able to support those small businesses too. And our leaders do things like expedited permitting, just supporting our industries after we cut a ribbon. That's very important to us, that we don't say, here's the picture, let's put out a press release and see you in a couple of years. We stay in constant contact, and I'll talk about that in a little bit too. Our location is very advantageous for us. Of course, Tennessee is within a day's drive of 76% of U.S. cities, and that's important when wanting to receive raw materials. It's important when wanting to ship out your finished goods to your companies with whom you have contracts. And of course, you're all familiar with our wonderful interstate infrastructure in the state of Tennessee. So our companies absolutely take advantage of that when looking at getting the things they need when they need them, and getting the things out that they need to when they need to do that. We are the largest community between Memphis and Nashville. We sit right on Interstate 40, about an hour to Memphis, about an hour and 20 minutes to Nashville. So, Jackson being the largest community between Memphis and Nashville, we have a lot, but we're not as big as Memphis and Nashville. So this close proximity to both of those cities allows us to be there when we need to be there, to get to know the right people in those communities, and really take advantage of even quality of life and livability offerings that our Japanese team members might want to take advantage of. We are extremely blessed that former Governor Ned McWhirter was from West Tennessee, and one of his very important projects to him was ensuring that we have 4-lane highways in West Tennessee, and boy, do we. We have 4-lane highways in every direction, and I'll talk a little bit later about our workforce and how they commute to Jackson from outside of Jackson. So these 4-lane highways make a big difference in our ability to recruit companies to locate here. We also have choices for air service. We have Memphis International Airport, Nashville International Airport, and of course, Jackson Regional Airport, which offers 12 weekly jet service flights on this 50-passenger jet to both Chicago and Atlanta. And a couple of weeks ago, when I flew to Japan for Seuss, I flew out of Jackson for the first time. So I flew out of Jackson, had a layover in Chicago. My next stop was Tokyo. This jet service coming last December was a game changer for us because it truly means that we are now just one stop from anywhere in the world. And that's hugely advantageous for us when looking at recruiting companies that want to be able to get to their home offices quickly and easily. No community can be successful without a quality workforce. And I think that that is one of the areas that we certainly shine too. This map, again, shows the 4-lane highways in every direction, but this is the 30, the 45, and the 60-minute commute. My husband works in Collierville, Tennessee, which is near Memphis, lives here in Jackson. 3 days a week, he drives 70 minutes to go to Collierville. If you were in a much larger city, if we didn't have these 4-lane highways in every direction, it might take you 70 minutes just to get across town. So the fact that you can travel from so far and find a great job in Jackson, the areas surrounding us are more rural. There are some wonderful companies located in the region, but not enough, not as many. So we are blessed that we are able to recruit people to work here that live far outside of just the Jackson city limits boundaries. There are over 300,000 people in that 9-county labor region. And one thing we're particularly proud of, and one of the reasons that we have been able to be successful, is the fact that less than 1/5 of 1% of our private sector workforce belongs to a labor union. And we intend to keep it that way. We have a lot of automotive companies. We have a lot of Japanese companies. We have companies that treat their people well, that offer opportunity, that are safe, that pay well. There is no need for a labor union, and we will not incentivize a company that would intend on bringing a labor union, even if it were a huge project, because we care so much about our existing industries from whom 80 to 90% of new jobs and investment come. So we want to be sure and protect that great, positive working environment and culture that we have, and that is to remain union-free. And as I mentioned earlier, people do drive to Jackson to work. The census will tell you that around half of our workforce commutes from outside Madison County. Our numbers from our labor studies and just talking with our industry say that in manufacturing, it's even higher, so about 60, 65%. So truly, we do compete with a larger community because we have 300,000 people in our workforce, not just the 100,000 that are in the county limits. We also have a balanced and diverse labor force. You can see here that 15% of Madison County's workforce is in manufacturing in that labor region that I shared. It's a little bit higher at 18%. And what that says to a company, a couple of things. One, it says that there are people here with experience in manufacturing. There are people here with experience in Japanese manufacturing. There are also probably training programs in place that can either be replicated or tweaked, or that already exist here and can be taken advantage of. So the fact that we have a balanced and diverse distribution of labor has helped us during economic downturns to keep our boats afloat and to not really feel the effects of the economy locally. This is a list of our top 10 manufacturing employers. We have about 70 different manufacturing companies in Jackson. And what I noticed when I was pulling this together is that 4 of our top 10 manufacturing companies are Japanese, with Pacific, TBD in Toyota Boshiku, Tennessee, and Toyota Motor Manufacturing, Tennessee. So if I'm working with a Japanese company that is looking at moving to the community, Japanese companies, and anybody really, but Japanese companies want to go where they know they'll be welcome, where they know they'll be supported, where something is familiar to them. So the fact that we already have Japanese companies here helps us to recruit additional Japanese companies. We have a prospect that we're working with right now that's Japanese, and the president of Pacific recorded a message in Japanese for me to share about his experience moving to this community, both personally and how their business is doing. So having those relationships that I'll talk about a little later are really important to helping you But also in this top 10, you can see diversity. So there is food, there are metals, there's automotive, plastics. So again, they see that no matter what type of company it is that we're looking to recruit, there are some transferable skill sets that already exist in our workforce. There are training programs that already exist in our workforce. And when a company that they respect, like, well, any of these, when a company that they respect has already vetted a community and then continues to expand and grow in that community, that speaks more than I ever could selling our community. So we are really blessed that every company that is located here, especially every Japanese company, has continued to grow throughout the years. I mentioned earlier that we don't believe in cutting a ribbon and then saying see you whenever. We really pride ourselves in the service after the sale, and this is really what any company would do with your existing customers. Our existing industries are our existing customers. So we stay engaged. We have monthly or bi-monthly plant managers tables, round tables with our mayors that are there, with ECD at the state of Tennessee, just trying to learn what's going on. What if we're sensing trends, if there are things that could be done to help. This is how one of our programs at our local community college came to be, because we understood that there was a shortage of maintenance workers. We heard that over and over. So we worked with Toyota and created a co-op program here called the Advanced Maintenance Technician Program. So getting together and hearing from these business leaders on a regular basis helps us to keep that relationship and ensures that they're going to call us when they have an opportunity or a challenge. And it helps us to hear common challenges that they're facing to see if we as a community can step up and help. We also meet with our human resource managers monthly. Same thing. They're sharing what's going on in their facility. It's very surprising to new companies that come here when they have looked at their other sites, because our HR group has been meeting. I've been here 26 years and it wasn't new when I started. They share so much. What are you offering for an increase this year? What's your starting wage for that? What's your policy on this? The fact that they are so collaborative and share information when technically they might be competing for employees is something that really makes a good impression on our existing companies, the new ones especially, and really it makes them all better because they're all willing to share and collaborate. We are really intentional about local and corporate relationship building. So if that's a trip to Japan with our mayors every 2 or 3 years just to say thank you, if it's a trip to a corporate office in Chicago to work on a project that we're competing for, maybe it's courting a couple of local plant managers at a Grizzlies game. Whatever the case is, it's all about being intentional with relationship building, intentional about supporting them, and knowing that you may not have all the answers, but they're going to call you and you're going to get them an answer. So just helping to establish that trust and that, for them to see value in you comes from that intentional relationship building. We also offer trainings on how to remain union free, how to treat your employees well so you don't have to worry about it, but what are things to look for if there ever is any union activity. We bring in a law firm and they'll talk about that with our local companies. Annually, we do a wage and benefit survey with Union University. This is our 8th year that we're doing this, and that's something that we're able to supply not only new companies that are looking at Jackson, but our existing industries are so supportive of this because they can see how competitive they are in the market. And it's not just wages. It's, what do you offer for payment for safety equipment? What is your facility air conditioned? All these different things that really go back to culture are just as important as how much somebody makes. So that wage and benefit survey will be published this year in December, and we are proud to say we have 41 participants this year. And then legislative advocacy. We are very close, especially with the Tennessee Chamber of Commerce, just to make sure that we're on top of any legislation that positively or negatively impacts our local companies. We want to be a voice for those companies, and we want to push information down to them from those entities. We take an annual trip now to DC and an annual trip to Nashville just to help cultivate those relationships. We are, you have some communities that have a huge college and they are a college town. We have a lot of colleges here in Jackson. All of these, except Freed-Hardeman, have locations in Jackson. Freed-Hardeman is in our MSA. We may not be a one college town, but make no mistake, we are a college town. I think there are over 14,000 students enrolled in college in Jackson. If that were one college, that would be huge. But we're blessed that we have a variety. We have Lane College, which is an HBCU. We have UT Martin and the University of Memphis. Bethel University, Union University, and then two high-performing technical schools with Jackson State Community College and Tennessee College of Applied Technology. And I'm sure you're familiar with those in other parts of the state. Ours is no different, except our local TCAT did just win several awards, and we're really proud of that. But these organizations work with our companies to develop new training, to develop upskill training. We really tap into the governor's Drive to 55 initiative and Tennessee Promise to try to get as many people some post-secondary credential if they can. And that's easy to do because we have this many schools just in West Tennessee. So to a company looking at coming to Jackson, they understand that not only are these schools located here, but no matter where their employee lives, they're going to have access to that technical education close to home. So we are really fortunate to have a state that has invested so highly into technical training, and we are very, very proud of the local community colleges and TCATs that we have in our area. I touched on this, so I won't spend a lot of time here, but really just don't underestimate the power of us having that low union presence. That's very important to a lot of companies, and it's especially important to Japanese companies. We also have a single source for all utilities, and that's Jackson Energy Authority, having water, wastewater, gas, electric, and fiber to the home. In fact, they were the first fiber to the home community in the state, and Chattanooga, who has done an amazing job, they actually came here and learned from us when they started theirs. We just didn't market it quite as well. But JEA, as we call it, is highly regarded among its peers. There are 2,000 power companies in the country, and they're the only one to have won the RP3 Diamond Award, which just speaks to the fact that we have redundancy, reliability, that very competitive rates, that we have a utility that's very forward-thinking and has invested in our community for years, and they are a huge selling point for our existing industries. And then lastly, well-vetted sites. We are lucky to have a city and county that believe in investing in publicly owned or publicly controlled sites. And we're not a community that says, hey, there are 200 acres out there, let's make it an industrial park. We're going to do all the vetting first. We're going to get that site certified. We're going to make sure that we eliminate time, risk, and cost for all of our potential end users. And you do that by making sure you have clean environmental reports, that it has access points already through roads, that it doesn't cost a lot to clear the site or grade the site. They can be development ready day one, and there won't be any delay. So we are very proud of our certified sites that we have done in the past, and we hope to do more in the future. So I'll pivot now into the last half of the presentation, where I'm really talking about just working with Japanese companies and business leaders. Some of this, the people on this call could probably teach way better than I, but I'm going to touch a little bit on relationships, communication tips, greetings and bowing, business cards, meetings and hosting, gift giving, and real world takeaways. But I think at first it's important to talk about, why does understanding Japanese business culture matter? Well, as you all know, Japan is a global innovation leader with a strong presence in our state and our country. Japanese companies place a high value on trust, long-term thinking, and protocol. And I think success depends as much on how you do business as what you offer. If you can show that you have appreciation for the Japanese culture, that's noticed. If I think sometimes people are scared to try because they're afraid to make a mistake. But in my experience, if someone can see that you're trying, it really goes a long way. And so that's what I would say is, don't be afraid. Do your homework and try to do it right. But don't be afraid to try, because I think it's really meaningful when we do. It's very important with Japanese to establish a trustworthy relationship. Business is personal. Loyalty is earned over time. It's trust over transactions with Japanese. You have to foster a mutual respect in all interactions, whether it's culture, whether it's business, whatever it is. Respect is of utmost importance with Japanese business leaders. And I have found that, it's as much on focusing on understanding the person, not just closing the deal. It is business, and I understand that, but it's people who are making those business decisions. And so if you can develop an authentic connection, and I think we've noticed over the years, by the time we announce, we're friends with the company. When we go visit Japan, particularly with this one company, it's like a homecoming. It's like a family reunion when we go there. And that's because we worked so very hard developing that relationship with them. And then consistency, reliability, and sincerity matter. These are some pictures from some of our previous Japan trips with our mayors. And, these are the more formal pictures, but know that there were also really fun moments had with, even with, I don't know if you can see that huge bottle of sake that I brought back, empty from Japan, from a night of celebrating with our friends with Pacific Manufacturing Tennessee. So we work hard, but we also play hard with our Japanese friends. We think it's important to have relationship and be involved with Japanese organizations and events. That's a picture of our president and CEO and me at the Consul General's residence having lunch. We were so honored to be invited last year. Of course, we've been involved with JAST for over 20 years and serving on the board. I've just gotten an even deeper appreciation and understanding for the organization and what it means to this state. I have done a Japanese business etiquette training for a neighboring community that was hosting its first Japanese prospect. And that was really interesting and really fun. And I hope to do more of those. Of course, we have the Memphis Japan Festival here in West Tennessee and also the language school in Memphis. So we have a lot of things for our local companies to take advantage of here in West Tennessee. Plus, you have the other festivals and the other events that JAST hosts throughout the year. So a few communications tips. I think simple, clear English is important. You don't want to use slang. You don't want to say, it's raining cats and dogs, because that may not translate. You want to say what you mean and mean what you say. And I think one of the biggest things that was difficult for me early on is getting comfortable with silence. Here in the US, we tend to feel uncomfortable in that setting. We tend to want to fill that space, but it's really important to not, to allow the time for the silence. They may pause to think. They may be thinking about a question they're going to ask. They may be trying to just understand the information you're presenting. So don't feel the need to fill that space. They might hesitate to disagree directly or say no. They might say something like, that might be difficult. So learn to read between the lines with them. They're not going to just say no always. They're not going to disagree verbally, but what they're saying might just be a nicer way of saying no. So just try to understand what they mean, not just what they say. And then, of course, avoid blunt disagreement. Don't say you're wrong. You can find other ways to say that. Another perspective might be this. That's an interesting point. You just want to be polite in every interaction. Speak slowly. Another opportunity for learning for me early on was that if there is a translator, pause and allow for translating between thoughts. And I have to remind our newly elected officials every single time of that, because they want to just keep talking for 5 minutes and the translator's trying to write everything down. And so giving them some space to translate and take in what you're saying is really important. And just clarify using paraphrasing. So if I understood you correctly, you meant this. So just make sure you're understanding them and they're understanding you. And then admit when you're wrong. And Sammy, I know we have time for questions later. If we do, I'd be happy to share an example of when we made a mistake recruiting Pacific Manufacturing Tennessee that could have lost us the project. But we admitted we were wrong and we overcame that and we made it right. And it made all the difference in the world. So just be humble and be really honest at every chance you can. With greetings, you're going to use formal titles like Mr. Seiko or President Seiko, Seiko-san. Usually the senior person on your team will greet visitors first, and don't wait for them to come up to your boardroom. Go to the front door, pick them up at the airport. But certainly, ride the elevator up with them and do the same when they're leaving, and you're going to wave bye. That's what they do to us, and it's always really special. You're going to greet the highest ranking individuals first. I have found that they often file back, and it's really obvious who that is. The people that are with them allow that person to step forward first. Bowing is still common, even with handshakes. These are some pictures of the bowing, and it can be a little uncomfortable at first when you're not used to it, but it quickly just becomes second nature. So know that even though handshakes are popular and you will do that, you'll also still bow when working with a Japanese company. And there's respect in every detail. Punctuality equals professionalism. You're going to dress conservatively and follow the seating hierarchy. The Japanese are group-oriented. The individual should not stand out and avoid boasting. There's that phrase that says, the nail that sticks out gets hammered down. And I recently learned and was surprised to learn that a lot of Japanese individuals do not have LinkedIn for that very reason. They consider that it could be boastful to say what your company is doing, or a success that you've had, or an experience that you've done. And so that was a real surprise, because I did understand that the Japanese don't want to boast, that the Japanese are very, very humble, but it did surprise me that it even included things like LinkedIn. So the business card exchange, business cards are ceremonial and are extremely important. We are very casual here in the US with our business cards. That is not the case with the Japanese. You're going to present and accept with both hands. Pause and take time to look at the card carefully and with interest, and have a nice holder. This is my leather business card holder that I have here. Have a leather, a wooden, maybe a metal business card holder. You're always going to want to have your cards there, not just in your pocket, not just in your purse. And be sure the cards are clean and unblemished. Don't pull the one out that has a tattered corner. Throw that one away. With the Japanese, because it's an extension of who you are, you want to make sure that your business card is reflective of who you are. And that's someone that pays attention to detail, that takes care of things and people. And the way to do that is to have a business card that presents that same message. So this is an example of how to give and receive the business cards with both hands. Most of you on the call, I'm sure, have done that a lot of times. Cards should not be kept in the wallet or the back pocket. You're going to keep it somewhere on the upper part of your body. Consider printing your name and title or your whole card in English and Japanese. If you're in a meeting setting, you're going to place the cards on the table in front of you in the same order as the people are sitting across from you, and they will be doing the same. If you're not in a meeting setting, place the cards respectfully in your card case so that you can show that you appreciate them and that what they gave you is valuable. So with meetings, it's really about process over speed. Seniority affects the speaking and sitting order. The end of tables are not generally used. So in the US, our highest ranking official always sits at the head of the table. In Japan, it's a little different. They sit in the center of the table. And if you're hosting guests, they're going to sit in the center of the table. And depending if you're hosting or visiting, the highest ranking official sits to the right, the second highest to their left, and so on. And also, you're usually going to have your guests facing the door or have a window or a piece of art behind them, but their back is not going to be to the door. It's more respectful that would be the hosts who have their back to a door if there is one. Decisions often come later with the Japanese, after internal consensus. So expect longer timelines, and also don't take them not accepting or agreeing to something as a negative. They're going to go away and they're going to talk about that later, and they'll get back with you. If you're having a snack or a meal, they'll often wait for the mayor or the highest ranking official to begin or to suggest that they drink or eat. So if you're hosting, make sure that you notice that, or they'll just be sitting there for the whole meeting without trying their tea or coffee that you have brought to them. If you're hosting Japanese visitors, often it's important to have a senior team member meet them at the airport, meet them downstairs, meet them at your front door. Again, don't just let them walk up to your meeting. It's more respectful to go out and meet them. That's how we are greeted when we visit our Japanese companies, and particularly when we're in Japan. So I think that repaying that would show a level of respect. Prepare a written agenda, translate it if possible. Dress for success. There's really no casual day with Japanese unless they specify otherwise. You're going to wear a suit and tie, gentlemen. Ladies, you're going to wear a jacket and slacks or a suit. Have water and tea available and a snack if you're meeting between meals. Especially if they're traveling over here, they're on a different, they have jet lag. It's a different time for them than it is for us here if they haven't been here very long. So offer them opportunities to snack and stay hydrated for sure. But know that the snacks shouldn't be too indulgent or sweet. When we visit Japan, we understand that their desserts don't taste like ours. So try to find something that's not so overwhelmingly sweet, and I think it will be better for their palate. Locally made is preferred if possible. You're going to try to stay with small talk on very positive, benign topics and avoid things that are potentially controversial. That's just common sense, but I think it's worth mentioning. It's certainly something that I mentioned when I was teaching that neighboring community, because their elected officials haven't had any experience with Japanese companies, and I didn't want to take for granted that even common sense would prevail there. Gifts are very important as part of the Japanese culture. You're going to bring a small, well-wrapped gift. A gift bag is okay. A thoughtful gift, a modest, a locally meaningful gift. Maybe it is a small pastry created locally. Maybe I've gotten small wooden bowls that were created by a local artist. We've given a lot of Jack Daniels over the years too. We've even given some Jack Daniels wooden pins that were made from a Jack Daniels barrel, and those I think were some of the most well-received gifts that we have given. But just think about not buying something that's just mass-produced. Something local is way more meaningful to a Japanese customer. Your highest ranking official on your team presents the gifts with both hands, just like you receive and give business cards. And it's not always customary for them to open gifts in front of you. So if it's your mayor giving the gift, if you're giving the gift, you might want to say it is okay to open. And they almost always will, but they're not often going to unless you give them permission to do so. So what are some real world takeaways? Well, what I've experienced in my 26 years of working with Japanese companies, it's that patience and humility go a long way. It's also that details and paying attention to details shows respect. Don't overlook that. It makes a company feel very special when they think that you've taken time to peruse their website, learn the things that are important to them. Weave that into your presentation if you find common interests and things that are important to you. Relationships take time and they have to be nurtured, and they never should be taken for granted. Just because I've been working here this long doesn't mean I need to stop cultivating those relationships and continuing to build trust and rapport, even if it's the same person I've been dealing with for a long time. Follow through is everything. You want to make sure that if you say you're going to do something, do it without any questions. There are no excuses not to get that done, and it will make a difference when you're competing with other communities and they don't have that same follow through. I think at the end of the day, we always say we want to do business with people we know, like, and trust. And it's no different for Japanese companies. They want to get to know you. They will automatically like you if they find that you're an honest person and you're providing them what they need. And especially if you get that time to have social time after the meetings. And over time, you'll build that trust, and that trust can be broken very easily. They say, I think trust, it can, a brick wall of trust can be kicked down with one kick, but it has to be built block by block by block. And so with our Japanese companies, that's what we are continually doing, block by block by block. Every interaction that we have, every opportunity we have to assist or serve, every chance we get to say thank you, every chance we get to just have fun with them is us building that trust block by block by block. So I would just leave you with that and encourage you to get to know the Japanese companies in your area. I am always happy to share my experiences, to share more business practices, to offer a virtual training to your team on more specifics on some Japanese business etiquette. I am so blessed to have been able to work with so many Japanese companies through the years, and I just want to continue to support our state in recruiting even more, and especially supporting the ones that we have here. And with that, Sammy, I'll turn it over to you.
Okay, man, so that was incredible. That was awesome. And let me remind everybody, by the way, you're welcome. If you have a question for Mandy now, just put it in either the chat tab or the Q&A tab at the bottom, and we'll get to it. So many thoughts, Mandy, as you were going through that. It's my experience in the past 2 years learning some of these customs. So first off it is crazy how much slang or metaphor that I use. I think you don't realize it until
Yep.
you realize that you need to try and cut that out. But when I started to have some of these conversations, like every other sentence, I'm throwing something in that is not there's no literal translation in the dictionary. It probably is some function of being, just living in Nashville or the South or whatever. So that's harder than you think it is. I will throw that out there. At least it was for me. And then your point about how so many of the customs that may seem over formalized or whatever at first, the common thread that underlies all of these things is that respect component. So there's so many, so take the business card exchange. When I think back to my previous stops in my career and how many times somebody probably gave me a business card and I just stuffed it immediately in my pocket. And then just went back to talking about whatever I was talking about and probably never looked at the business card again. And then 5 minutes later, I had trouble remembering the person's name. So that probably was not me showing the ultimate respect to that person who gave me that business card, right? And with the Japanese business card exchange, I love that you take a moment and you look at the name and the title, the name of the company, just make sure you have all that right, where they're located. Maybe you ask them a question. And then amazingly, 5 minutes later or a week later, you remember that person's name and you remember those details, right? It's just amazing how that works. And then with the written agenda for the meetings, that's a respect thing too, because they want to come very prepared to your meeting so that they don't waste your time. And you need to accord them that same type of respect, right? It seems like that's, maybe they're just strict about meeting decorum and that, but that's a respect thing too, is they want to respect your time. So I appreciated that too. And then I think with the gift culture, that's just showing, again, nobody expects some kind of gold-plated gift or something like that, but just showing that you've done enough advanced work to know that that's a part of their corporate culture, that they, that you understand that that's a part of it. And I think that goes a long way, even if it's just a small sort of token, some sort of local item like that. I mean, do you agree with all that?
I totally agree. And I still make the mistake. I think sometimes we spend too much on our gifts, because the gifts that I receive from the Japanese are lovely and wonderful, but they don't necessarily cost $50 each. And it truly is the token and having some local flair or a piece of small art or something that is just regional to where they are, really matters more than the price tag on a gift.
Right. Well, so let me ask you this, and you spoke about this, but I just really want to drive this point home. So we all know, for example, the story of Governor Lamar Alexander traveling to Japan to build a relationship with the Japanese that ultimately, materialized in the Nissan plant going to Smyrna, Tennessee. And 200 Japanese companies later, here we are, right? It's the best international relationship that we've ever had by far. So you and I have just gotten back from Japan, along with a delegation of about 70 Tennessee business leaders and higher ed and government leaders, for that exact purpose, right? To go build these relationships. So just, I know what I think, but just to ask the question again, are relationships in the year 2025, when it comes to dealing with the Japanese, still as important as ever? Or is it all just bottom line driven, incentives, workforce, and those things that can go on a spreadsheet?
Not only do I think they're as important as ever, I think perhaps they can be even more important, because I think that technology has changed so much. It means that we're doing this a lot more virtually. And so it's really important that when you have that, and relationships can be formed virtually, But there's no substitution for spending time with someone and, elbow to elbow at a dinner or at a cigar lounge or wherever it is that you are. Those relationships matter as much as ever, maybe more than anything, especially because we're even more competitive now. There are so many communities that want to compete for the same projects that we do.
Right.
And at the end of the day, I think everything I do in economic development begins and ends with relationships.
Right. Right. That's great. And then I'll continue to indulge myself because nobody's put in a question yet.
Sure.
But so, and I'm coming out of left field with this one. I didn't prep you on this one, but
Uh-oh.
as you were talking, I wanted to ask about so the Japanese work culture and their attention to details. We know they believe in hard work. We know they
Mhm.
believe in precision. A number of different things that have made us want to buy Japanese products for decades, right at this point. And so, in your years in Jackson, have any of those things ever resulted in kind of like a corporate or a cultural kind of disconnect with local employees or anything like that? And I wondered if what you may have done about that, if anything like that has ever come up.
I think that, yeah, I think that's why us already having some Japanese companies here is attractive to new Japanese companies because they know that those individuals have experience with TPS, or they just have experience with the expectations. You're dealing with a very different time zone, so sometimes you're gonna have to work at odd hours to communicate
Right.
with Japan. Um, I do see that things have shifted a little bit. For example, our Saturday school used to be really active, but then it seemed that most of our people that were moving here from Japan intended to be here 2 to 3 years only, and they were leaving their
Right.
children at home. And all they were doing was working. And I'm seeing that shift back now where they are bringing their families. And while I still think by far our Japanese companies are going to be a little more regimented or a lot more regimented than some of our other US companies that we have here, I think there has been just a little turn in the dial of just a little bit more balance between
Yeah.
family and home, but still very, very high expectations.
Okay. Very interesting. And let me look at the. Okay, so one question in the Q&A tab here, Mandy. What do you see as the biggest changes in recruiting Japanese companies over the last 25 years?
Hmm. Earlier today I was at the copy machine scanning a document, scanning the wage and benefit survey that I talked about. It was a proof.
Right.
And I said to my coworker who was standing there, what did we do before we could scan? And the reality was we mailed everything, we shipped everything, we faxed things. I can remember when I first started out, we had a prospect book that was that thick and it had information on demographics and workforce and all the things that I mentioned that made Jackson attractive. And so I think technology has changed everything. I think
Yeah.
the internet has what used to be site selection because of the internet has become site elimination. I think you can be cut before you ever even know you were being considered. They used to
Right.
have to come here and kick tires. They don't have to do that anymore. They can do a virtual meeting. They can research you and know as much about you as you do, almost, it seems, when they visit. So I think technology has been the biggest change in the internet from when I first started.
Right. Oh, that's great. That's great. So I'll go ahead and prompt you to tell that Pacific Industries
Yeah.
story. But first, I do want to say I thought it was cool that the executive from Pacific was it submitted a video in support of another
Mhm.
project. So I
Mhm.
think that's a cool thing, right? Because that's a potential like competitor for workforce,
Mhm.
that may make his wages tick up a little bit if you guys successfully land the project. But I think that really supports what you were saying about like the team oriented concept, right? I mean, there's a rising tide thing that's going to make Jackson better, then that's going to make his company more successful there,
That's
his
right.
facility. But yeah, go ahead and tell that story.
Yeah. So there are two parts to it, and it really just stems from relationships. That same word again.
Right.
I remember being in Chicago while we were courting Pacific. I was in Chicago for just a fun trip, and I got a call from my contact. And we were competing with another city at that point, several others, but one in particular, and they had provided some wage data that she didn't think was accurate. Now, I don't know that they did that on purpose. She told me I knew it also wasn't accurate. First of all, it would have been real easy for me to go, that is wrong. You need to eliminate them. Never would we ever do that. But what I was able to do was to turn her on to a research firm that could validate the data of all the communities that they were considering. And I got off that call and I thought, she trusts me. The fact that she called me, first of all, the fact that she was a she was unique. That was 10 years ago or more than 10 years ago. But the fact that she called me started me understanding that we had really developed some trust and some rapport. So fast forward to, it was down to us and another community in Tennessee at that point. And they had asked us, are there any additional taxes? Like, tell us all the taxes. And so we answered with all of the taxes. Well, later, as we get to looking at our incentives and our programs, there's an application fee. There's an administrative fee associated with a pilot, which is your local tax abatement.
Right.
And when we presented that to them, they said, you didn't mention that. And it would have been easy for us to go, well, that's not a tax. You asked about taxes. But what we did is we said, you're right.
Yeah.
We should have included that. And we ended up figuring something out. We ended up waiving the fee for them, but it ended up getting paid. It's a long, complicated story. But to them, they didn't get that fee because in their minds, we were wrong. We hadn't lied. I mean, they knew we didn't do it on purpose. But admitting we were wrong and accepting that with humility and not saying, but no, really, that's you. At the end of the day, 3 expansions later, was it worth us waiving that application fee and administrative fee? Absolutely. If they had felt we were trying to butt up against them or be negative or blame them, could we have lost the project when it was down to 2? Absolutely. Absolutely. Because the other community was actually offering a more aggressive incentive. So I look back at that and I just think about how easy it is to blame and how difficult it is sometimes to do the right thing, but you never ever regret doing the right thing every single time.
Yeah. Great story. And I think that, again, just also speaks to the very thorough and intensive attention to detail on their end, because in their mind, they don't want to have to wonder, well, they left this out. What else did they leave out? And so when we're millions of dollars already into the ground to build this facility, we can't be finding out this stuff later. But that's great.
That's right.
And then congratulations on the Toyota announcement
Thank you.
today.
It's so exciting.
It does look like it does make it look like we just planned all this and synced it all up to the timing wise. So we should have just gone with that. But
I should have.
Well, 2 minutes left. There's one more question on the Q&A, so we can finish with this. And the question is just how is Madison and Jackson County preparing for all of the changing workforce needs?
Yeah. A couple of things come to mind. One is through our wage and benefit survey, we're having a greater understanding of what types of job classifications people are challenged in finding people to apply for. So we're working with our school system and our STEM Innovation Center and our TCAT and our community college and others to help ensure that we have people entering the workforce in those areas so that they can recruit the talent that they need. Another thing that we do that's not different than a lot of communities, but is Manufacturing Day, just exposing students to manufacturing. So often the perception of manufacturing is so different than the reality. And so they might go home before they've ever seen it for themselves and say, I want to work in manufacturing. And their mom or their dad or their aunt or grandpa has this perception of what was reality many, many years ago. And so to expose them to see manufacturing themselves is very, very helpful in having them consider those careers. There are several other initiatives that we have with the school system that we're doing, but one other unique thing that we're doing, and we're hoping to model it after Clarksville, Tennessee. Childcare is a really big challenge. Cost, quality, all the things. And so we are actually working with TVA. We received a grant, and we're putting up some local funds to do a study on where are our childcare needs, what do we lack, what do we need, not just for us, but for those 50% plus people that commute to Jackson from outside of here to work every day. So trying to find some sort of solution that it won't solve everything, but one bite of the elephant at a time. If we could create maybe a public-private partnership to open up some slots for available that are quality slots for people that are needing childcare, we think that's going to have a huge impact on our workforce.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. Well, we'll stop it right there, Mandy. Great, congratulations on all the great work you guys are doing, and
We have a great
keep
team.
up the good work. And thanks for giving us the time today. This was a great one, truly.
Sure, I appreciate it. Thank
yeah.
you so much. Y'all have a good day.
Thanks, Mandy, and thanks one more time to Jeff and Mitsui for making this series possible. And we hope everybody has a great rest of your day and a great Thanksgiving. Thanks so much. Bye.